What does dependent child mean for an Australian visa? What is a dependent child, and when can you add a dependent child to an Australian partner visa application? When can you apply for a child visa, and when can you not apply? When is a child truly dependent and when are they not? This is a critical question that comes up fairly regularly to Down Under Visa when a partner visa applicant has children from a previous relationship or is a single mother. And we take this very seriously because I must say I'm a bit of a soft touch when it comes to kids. I like seeing kids remaining with their mums, and I like seeing new families being created. Every kid needs a mum and a dad, and remaining with grandparents, it's really not the same. The issue of whether a child is dependent or not, though, it doesn't come up much with younger kids, unless the child is living with the father of the child exclusively. As a general rule, yes, they are dependent if they're under 18. Now, dependency can be called into question with older kids, and sometimes the line between dependent and not dependent is a bit grey. Now, what does dependent child mean? Firstly, it means they are a member of the family unit. Now, family unit means mum, dad, child or stepchild, possibly child of child. In other words, yes, if daughter happens to have a child and she's dependent, and the child is therefore dependent on mum and dad as well. Now, it doesn't mean elderly parents, it doesn't mean cousins, it doesn't mean the child of the sister who you've grown very fond of and treated as your child. It means the basic nuclear family, mum, dad and kids. Now, if the child is under 18, then yes, they are a dependent child. That is, unless they are engaged, married, or in a de facto relationship with someone else. If that's the case, then they're no longer dependent. It doesn't happen very often, fortunately. But however, if they have kids, just the fact that they have kids, then that does not in itself exclude them as long as they do remain single. Okay, so it does happen. So, secondly, it also means that the child applicant, which is known as a secondary applicant in a visa application, is dependent on the family head. Strange term, but take it as you will. Or the spouse of the family head. In other words, they're dependent on mum or dad. Now, if they're over 18 and under 23, they may still be included in the application as a dependent child if they are in fact truly dependent on the family head or the spouse of the family head, mum and dad. Now, what does dependent actually mean? What it means is that they are dependent on that person either wholly or substantially, not wholly as in wholly, W-H-O-L-L-Y, completely or substantially for their daily needs. Wholly or substantially. That means if Auntie Jing Jing is paying for tricycle fares, well, look, that's no big deal. Even if Auntie's paying for school fees, no big deal. But mum and dad should be footing the bill for everything or nearly everything, and they need to have done so for a substantial period beforehand. You can't just suddenly start supporting them when you haven't for several years, because they will find out, and that's a no-no. And what we're talking about, providing for their basic needs of, which means food, clothing, shelter. Nothing else. Food, clothing, shelter. Now, what if they are working, or what if they're married or living in a de facto relationship? Now, this is where the basic needs question comes in. Now, I had someone recently telling me that their daughter was earning 18,000 pesos a month at a call centre, but that she was still dependent on her mum. Her mum was still sending her money. But that means she wasn't dependent for basic needs. Definitely not, because basic needs, it doesn't cost 18,000 pesos a month in the Philippines to live on that. A girl working in SM was earning 8,000 a month, not 18,000, and she can be supporting herself. You can support a family on that. So, but in basic needs. Now, maybe it isn't enough for fancy clothes or socialising, going to Starbucks, but visas are not about anyone living in luxury. You can pretty much say that unless someone is working one day a week for pennies at the local sari store, then working generally means they're not dependent anymore. So, not if they have a job, don't expect them to be considered dependent from the department's point of view. Now, if they're married or living with someone in a de facto relationship, no, it means they're grown up, they're an adult, they're no longer dependent on their parents if they've grown up and moved on. So don't try and push it. What if they're over 23? Try that again. What if they've been a long day? What if they're 23 or over, and what if they're disabled? Well, if they are totally or partially incapacitated, physically or mentally, then they can be considered dependent, regardless of what age. So, they could in fact be considered dependent if they were 35 years old, if they're dependent wholly or substantially on mum and dad, and if they have a very solid reason for not working. But just be aware that you will have issues with them passing the health criteria, in other words, passing their medicals. Otherwise, if they are 23 or over, then they are. Otherwise, then they are too old to be considered dependent. They're grown-ups. Now, it can be a tough one for Filipinos. In Australia, or at least in my day, I don't know what young people do these days. When I was growing up, we had a job and we moved out in our late teens, or certainly by our early 20s. Now, we longed for an independent life where we could make our own decisions and to start living the way we wanted. There was rarely such a concept in the Philippines. Most young people only move out when they absolutely have to, due to work or other reasons, and given the choice, they would rather stay with their parents and the extended family. So mum remarrying and moving to Australia can be quite traumatic. That's for sure, if that means they're going to be separated, because they never expected that would ever happen. But look, you have to accept that Australia looks upon these matters differently to the Philippines. And newsflash, even the Philippines regards 18 as being an adult from a migration point of view. They do. Try to get a permanent resident visa in the Philippines and include your 25-year-old son with a job. It won't happen. So basically, you need to decide where you want to be. Make a decision, move forward. Thank you. Thank you. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you enjoyed it and you would like to subscribe, you can click on the little button down the bottom corner there, and you can subscribe to our YouTube channel. There are regular articles on aspects of Australian visas to the Philippines on www.downundervisa.com.au. There's a blog page you can subscribe to. There is a free visa assessment form, and there are regular articles on aspects of Australian-Filipino relationships, which you can see on www.filipinawives.com.au. If you can please share these articles and these videos on any of the social media that you use, we would appreciate that. Thank you.